So yes, I'm Ian Smith, working for Copper Horse. We're a cybersecurity consultancy, and here today to talk about IoT security. The last speaker, you heard from Telia about enabling smart connected infrastructure, smart meters. This means that those smart meters become part of critical national infrastructure, and therefore it's essential that applications like smart metering are absolutely secure. In fact, the regulations coming into place all around the world to ensure that it is. How do we make it secure? That leads into our panel session here and now. I've got an esteemed set of panelists here in front of you to talk about this particular subject. Just quickly, perhaps go down the line and ask them just to quickly introduce themselves.
Thanks, Ian. My name is Bijvelds. I'm SVP of EAP for Core Wireless. Core is an IoT enabler. We help our customers deploy, manage, and scale IoT solutions, and we do that through connectivity, solutions, and analytics, in the end, to simplify their journey in IoT.
Stefan here from Deutsche Telekom, heading SIM development for the Deutsche Telekom group. Me and the team, we are looking into everything that's technically related to SIM, eSIM, and new SIM, which is our idea of an integrated SIM for IoT. Happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Paul Bullock. I'm Chief Product Officer at Wireless Logic. We're a global managed cellular networking provider, predominantly in IoT.
Hello, I'm Nicolas Damour. I'm in charge of strategic partnerships for CRI Wireless, which is now, since early January, part of Semtech Corporation. And I'm also chairman of the GSMA Terminal Steering Group for IoT.
Okay, thank you, guys. So today's panel session, leveraging a root of trust to establish end-to-end chip-to-cloud security for large-scale IoT deployments. I have to look at my notebook to read that. Very long title, trying to pack a lot in here. So I think we need to try and dissect this a little bit. I think the first thing we need to dissect is this term root of trust. In fact, no, first thing we should dissect is what we mean by end-to-end, chip-to-cloud. And I'm going to turn to Stefan and ask the question, why is end-to-end security important for IoT applications?
Yeah, thank you, Ian. I don't think we have to discuss the importance of security. So let's look at the end-to-end aspect of that. This is kind of the top category of security schemes. So how important is that? So from the perspective of an operator, we simplified. We see two segments of customers. For the first, quite large segment of customers, the standard security package that we offer is just the best choice because it consists of the standard security LTE features like authentication, confidentiality, integrity protection between the device and the network. Plus, there is a VPN using IPsec tunneling. Plus, there may be a private APN. So that's for the customers to choose from. And for most of the customers, this is just the solution of choice. It's a reliable and it's a proven solution. However, this is definitely not end-to-end. This is end to middle, middle to other end. Device to network, network to cloud. And then there is this other segment of customers. It's small, but it is important. And these customers want to be independent. They want to have their own responsibility. They want to be in control for whatever reason. And that's a fair point. And we are able to offer several tailor-made solutions, including the customer brings his own security scheme, which he may have in place, maybe from his non-cellular business. So, and especially if the customer owns both ends of the chain, the device and the cloud, this is particularly easy. So, long story short, it is important, not in the majority of cases, not for the long tail of customers, but for those customers where security is a major criteria, where responsibility, control, independence are major criteria. This is very important, and we have to deal with that as an operator.
Thank you, Stefan. Any other panelists like to add their views on end-to-end or chip-to-cloud and its importance?
I think so. The expression chip to cloud end-to-end is really important because, as you just mentioned, Stefan, the customer may own the whole chain from the device to the cloud, but very often there will be a number of different actors along the way. So having really a solution that is flexible enough to accommodate for all of these different actors end-to-end from the very lowest level of hardware all the way to the cloud is really an important aspect. And so at the same time, it needs to be flexible, but of course, very reliable in terms of trust. So, and that's a challenge we're in. And so that's really what we're delivering. There are several solutions for that, and we'll talk more about that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dissect the next part of our title, Root of Trust. What is a root of trust? What does it do? And why is it secure? Let's turn to Marco.
Yeah, well, the root of trust is in the end an element that we trust. The word actually explains itself, right? So it's a place where you can store stuff that is truly secure because that element is not you cannot tamper it. It's immutable, so it's trusted by the outer world. It's very difficult to hack. That's basically what it is.
This is in the device.
In the device itself, right? A piece of hardware where things can be stored in a secure way. There's different variations of it. One of the interesting things, I think, if you look at IoT is how do you create a solution that is secure end-to-end, but is also cost-effective and easy to deploy. So the SIM card is a very interesting element in that sense. Everybody's using a SIM card one way or the other. And using the SIM card as a secure element, as a root of trust, allows us to do new things. And actually the industry has designed a solution for that called IoT Safe that allows to use that root of trust in the IoT solution that gives the possibility to do chip-to-cloud authentication in a very secure way. So that IoT Safe solution is something that we're using right now. It also allows, and that's very important, to provide IoT at scale. So building in security is not that straightforward, and doing it at scale is not even is even more difficult. And with IoT Safe, you can actually deploy devices in the field that connect to the cloud in a very secure way without without touching it. So it's zero-touch provisioning, which is supporting that, which is truly necessary for mass IoT. So I think that's very helpful, a big step forwards for a lot of customers that will be looking at their security solutions. If you go one step further, and we've used that IoT Safe concept to develop further together with Keegan and Energy Web to even put blockchain on top of that to even provide more security. So that all is integrated in that single SIM card. That root of trust is being used for that use case where blockchain in combination with IoT Safe makes it possible to use those keys which are stored on the SIM card in a very safe way, and that support use cases that are really relevant. So we're talking about utilities just before, thinking about the energy transition, trusting all elements in that ecosystem, which is getting more complex with decentralized energy production, EV vehicles moving in and out of the ecosystem, all kind of charging that has to be done. That solution is supporting those kind of use cases. So we believe that making it simple for customers to adopt solutions that are inherently secure, scale at the right, in a simple way, and are cost effective, that's important as well, is crucial to this point.
Okay, I think we're going to touch a little bit more in terms of the solutions themselves again in a second, but just to focus a little bit on what is the root of trust in that end device. I mean, is it hardware, software? Is it just some secure memory? Does it do more than that? Perhaps others can talk a little bit more.
It's a technical term for identity. It's a technical term for identity. How do you make sure you know that that thing is that thing forever and it cannot change? It gets wrapped up in a lot of technical terms, but that's really what it is.
So it's an immutable identity on the device.
It typically lives in a secure element, a tamper-proof element of some type.
Yep.
But really, that's what we're talking about. How do I know that thing is that thing forever?
Yeah, I think there are. So we just talked about the SIM card, which is a very common root of trust in the cellular world. But if we take a step back and we look at what kind of root of trust you may have, and Marco, you did mention, so being cost effective in some environments, you could have so-called software root of trust. The most famous one being what's called a TEE, Trusted Execution Environment, where you can put a certain amount of security. But as we see the evolution of the IoT applications going forward, the emphasis on more and more reliable security really goes toward hardware ground security. So you'll have an element of hardware, call it a secure element, a secure enclave. It could be a smart card, like in a SIM card. It could be a discrete element on the board of the device, or it could be in the silicon, in which case you would call it a secure enclave. But that's really where you put the hardware element and then the software layer stacks on top of them, including IoT Safe, to enable that whole security, like building a castle, not on sand or in a swamp. You really want to have a solid foundation for your security stack.
Thank you, Nicolas. Stefan, please.
Yeah, there is another type of root of trust that we should not forget, which is the personal trust, or the trust that one company has towards another. Any technical root of trust has to be implemented. Then we have to trust the implementers. It has to be certified. Then we have to trust the certification procedure and the service provider that does the certification. The certification needs to be maintained. That has to be done in a well-defined manner. So we have to trust a lot of players all over the place, and the entire system will not work about a good level of personal human trust that we have towards each other. A good example for that is a long-lasting relationship with a supplier or with a partner, with a customer. It will not work without that. That's, to me, is one of the most important root of trust that we can think of.
So really, it's one part of a chain of trust, effectively, to enable trust in different entities, business entities. At the end of the day, that's absolutely essential. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of perhaps roots of trust that we might actually find in the market today. You know, actually, solutions available to secure products and services today. I'd like to perhaps just run down the panel here and ask about the different products and services that they offer in this area today. Perhaps starting with Nicolas.
Yeah, so again, I think if you're looking at the hardware solutions, you could have, a number of chip companies offer dedicated chips with algorithms in them that will really include all the security routines that you need as a discrete element. That's what we could call them. And these elements can also be integrated, especially in the cellular IoT world. Whenever you'll be using a cellular network, really, you get best-of-class security because it's really the same technology that you have in your banking cards, essentially. So it's been around for a long time, which is also an element that should not be forgotten. That security, again, as Stefan was saying, relies on trust being tested over time. And that kind of technology is available in SIM cards, is available in discrete ways, in the silicon, sometimes already integrated. That's the whole thread of technologies we've got around iSIM in GSMA. So that essentially the flavors you could get for a hardware root of trust.
Okay, so Nicolas, you're obviously staying fairly neutral on this subject. You really enable, multiple potential solutions based on what your customers require. Let's perhaps get a bit more specific, and we'll perhaps to Paul here. Obviously, as a network operator, you're offering some very specific root of trust services. Perhaps you could explain what you're presently offering.
We're in the IoT Safe camp, and I think we had an item on here about how you address getting locked into an ecosystem. And
I just wondered if you could perhaps talk a little bit about your offering initially.
Well, it's multi-layered, so IoT Safe is part of it, but also you have to look at the security certifications of your partners. So we achieve ISO 27001, so we tick all those boxes. Our NetPro suite of security and the ability to do some anomaly detection in our network all contributes to a layered approach to deliver a secure cellular networking solution.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, so let's perhaps turn specifically, let's talk about IoT Safe. Some subject quite close to my heart, something I helped sort of create back in my days at GSMA. Marco, you've already sort of given a little bit of introduction to IoT Safe, what it does. Perhaps we could, again, sort of touch on that subject. What is IoT Safe? What does it offer to the solution provider?
So like I was saying, in the end, IoT Safe is an easy way to get to an enhanced level of security. So I think a lot of the customers that we have, everybody knows that solutions have to be inherently secure. But the question is, how do you go about it? And making that easy and even more cost effective, because if we think about root of trust, if you have to have an element in your device that will work for some of the devices because they're more expensive, other devices are very low cost and have to be low cost because of the use case. And having a solution that provides that at a low cost, easy to integrate, which is using open standards. I think that's important as well, right? The IoT Safe solution is using open standards, which makes it easy to integrate with. You have to still integrate the device with the IoT Safe solution that is residing on the SIM card. All that makes it easy to adopt. So I think those are elements that really are, let's say, strengths of the IoT Safe solution. And like I said, an important piece of that is that you're able to connect to a cloud solution. Any cloud solution could be AWS, could be Google, could be your own cloud, in a secure way. So you put your device in the field without any personalization. It goes to some kind of connection point. It gets the keys. And then in a secure way, you set up the session to the cloud without touching it. So you don't have to pre-provision the device in the factory, basically, which makes it very easy to use and makes it easy to work at scale. I think that's the foundation of IoT Safe in a nutshell.
Okay. Would anyone else like to say anything about, particularly about IoT Safe? Well, I think one of the other attractive properties is it works quite well in combination with eSIM, ISIM.
I think so. One important aspect of IoT Safe, so besides being very practical and easy to deploy, is also the fact, and that I think that's a very important point, it is not tied to any particular network operator necessarily. And I think to your point, working well with ISIM and eSIM in particular, there may have been some confusion sometimes that people think, okay, if I'm getting my security from IoT Safe through my network operator, the day I want to switch, maybe 10 years from now, to another one, I will lose all that chain of trust. And that is not true. It's very important to understand that the customer in the end is the owner of that security chain, and it works so well with eSIM that whenever you would choose to change network operator, you would retain that root of trust and not have to discard all your devices on the field.
Paul, would you like to say anything about this? Obviously, you'll have an IoT Safe offering. You're talking to real customers. Is the sort of lock-in a sort of subject that gets raised? Do you have a response to that?
Yeah, lock into an ecosystem. I mean, it's probably not true to say you can achieve complete ecosystem independence. But when you're looking at the overall lifetime of your deployment from a business point of view, you want to isolate the most expensive bits and make sure that you're not locked into an expensive ecosystem. And the appeal of locating identity in the SIM, which is identical in every way to your bank card, is that you have cloud portability, and your AWS and Azure costs will not go down over time. And you may want to deploy a hybrid cloud environment. You may want to have some of your devices hitting a laptop under your desk and some in Azure in Brazil. You don't know. And when you have your device identities within your control, it gives you the highest degree of portability. It does promise a path to true zero-touch provisioning. It promises a path to, call it massified IoT, where you can buy stuff off the shelf and it's just going to work in a secure way. So this concept of an identity that is owned at a very low cost by the company operating the estate in question is fundamental. So you can map all your costs and all your benefits for your overall solution on a few slides, put some dollar signs beside the most expensive ones, and focus on escaping those ecosystems.
Okay. Anyone else like to sort of chip in on any of thing we've just discussed there?
Yep. I was just going to say that there is certainly a level of lock-in, like there is with any technical solution. So if you're making a choice for a particular solution, then you will want to keep that at least for a period of time, and you will not easily switch to something else. That's a lock-in, but it's a chosen lock-in, and not at all a downside, like with any other technical solution.
Well, I guess it's different levels, isn't it? There are some solutions that may completely lock you into a proprietary ecosystem forever. There are solutions that maybe offer the ability to swap, to change. But obviously, there's obviously always a technical process behind that has a degree of pain involved.
Handcuffs versus handshakes.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So let's just time is limited, so perhaps you just bring the subject back up to the use cases. I mean, in terms of what is root of trust, IoT Safe, what kind of use cases are these really going to be enabling in the future? We've heard obviously about smart metering. Any other use cases that particularly lend themselves to this approach?
Micromobility is a great one.
Sorry, Paul?
Micromobility, scooters. There's a story of a common one, where people you have to buy a secure element that has cost, you have to do your certificate management that has cost, and when you're deploying devices at the lowest possible cost, you tend to dispense with those things. And so we had a customer who will remain nameless, who was, because of cost avoidance, they were locating their certificates in Flash, which is a disaster, of course. But to compound that, they were emailing their private keys to their contract manufacturer in Asia, which is crazy. And they did all this to avoid some upfront cost. And the IoT Safe model, particularly as implemented by Keegan, ticks a lot of those boxes at a very efficient deployment model and cost base.
Okay, it's a really good use case.
I think, in terms of use cases, so we've seen, coming down from smart metering and all critical infrastructure security, now we can see that a lot of industrial deployments also require a high level of security, and that root of trust in the technology, but also in the partners you're working with. I mean, our world is changing. We've been talking about sustainability, but also the geopolitical environment and the sourcing environment where you get your components from is also an important piece. And a lot more of industrial stakeholders in any industry, really, manufacturing, are also looking at deploying stronger security to protect their assets more and more. So it's coming from critical infrastructure all the way down to I would say, more common industries.
Okay, Stefan.
We don't see any specific verticals for end-to-end security. It always depends on the customer and the application, the value of the data, the sensitivity of the data. Sometimes data is absolutely business critical for that customer. Then, of course, they will ask for the highest possible security level. So, and they're coming from all ends of the business. It's very customer specific. As I said in the beginning, for the majority of customers, it's okay to use the standard features that we're able to offer, but for some others, this is absolutely not sufficient. They want more, and ideally, they want to have something what they have under control.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, we're into our last couple of minutes. Perhaps we'll just go down the line, just ask the panelists to make any closing remarks. Maybe you could indicate if the sources of further information that you might have available on this subject. Perhaps start with Marco.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, in the end, to let IoT scale, we have to make it simple for our customers, and we should not forget that, right? So, and I think what we're discussing here today is a big step towards simplifying it for our customers, and that's what we try to do within Core. So anybody that's interested in the solution, glad to have the conversation after the panel here or later on after the event.
Thank you. Stefan?
I can only underline the simplicity argument. The simpler it is for the customer, the better it is for all of us. And so we have to make it simple somehow. Some things are not really simple, especially when security comes into play, when we are talking about PKI and elliptic curves, cryptography. These things are never simple. We have to hide that somehow in front of the customer. And that is, to me, an absolutely crucial factor to make IoT fly, making it simple without sparing on security. And that's the challenge.
Thanks, Stefan. Paul?
The human element of security is fundamental. Industry certifications, financial stability of your solution providers is critical to security over time. And that all has to be addressed as well.
Thank you, Paul. And Nicolas, you have the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, so if my mic is working. So yeah, I think just like Marco, I think that the best thing if you want to hear a little bit more about IoT security, you've got a nice set of experts here. Just come and talk to us, to any of the 4 companies. The names are up there. again, engaging so that we can understand your needs and fit the right level of security for you, well, just come and talk to us. That's what we're here for. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, that wraps up this particular session. Thank you, panelists. Really appreciate you joining today. And thank you for listening to us.